Hey guys, this is Ed from Mission Impossible, and with me I have Wyatt, and welcome to RetroGrade, where we rank all of the ATARI 2600 games. This time we have games by Apollo and Epyx. So if you want to see where we played all these games, be sure to click up here or up here, I don't remember where it shows up, for the a link to the retro review, where we actually played through these, a good 10 minutes, 12 minutes for each one of them. Actually, on the games ones, we played longer even, but so you can check those out, which is live. We stream every week, or just about every week. So, Final Approach.
This was air traffic control, the beginning of that genre, I guess. It did its job fairly well once you figured out how to do it.
It was a little confusing at first.
Yeah, especially because, it would be nice if once it got into position, it just went to the other screen as opposed to, all right, now go press a button that doesn't always press even.
No.
Especially because it's like there are 3 buttons and none of the other 2 buttons do anything.
That was a lot.
It's just, it seems like a smoke screen.
Here. Yeah.
Thusly, I was pretty middling on the whole thing. I'm going to give it a C because I think it did what it was trying to do. I just didn't really enjoy what it was trying to do very much. We played for a long time, but
we were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we were. But once we figured it out, I was like, oh, cool. We figured it out. We should go now.
Right. Okay. I'm going to actually go a bit higher. I'm going with an A.
Wow.
I really liked what they were trying to do. The idea, if you look at some of these other games, like I think the next one, where it's just a basic shooter game or whatever, and it's just kind of like not much going on. This actually had a lot going on. Yes, there could have made some changes to make things a little easier. And it's, one of the things that they always have a problem with is conveying enough information without having to use the manual. It's like, now you need to go here to do that. It's really hard to do that. So, but other than that, I actually really enjoyed it. And I thought it was really clever. And again, I've played air traffic controller games since then. And you got the same kind of thing. When I saw, I'm like, oh wow, actually air traffic controlling, interesting. I enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad you did. But Guardian, the next one, I gotta say I liked less even.
Oh, right.
Because it was Earths are flowing in a pipe below you, and you're shooting at some stuff coming out of a spaceship that you can't shoot. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of dull because of that. There wasn't a lot going on. And right. I've played this exact game before,
pretty much,
almost, yeah. Except it was like soldiers going under a tunnel.
Yeah, those were G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it was G.I. Joe, and the big robot Cobra was shooting at you.
Yeah, pretty much. It was pretty much like G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it's just that one played a little better and was more interesting to look at.
Didn't have I don't know if they had the breakout thing, did they?
I don't
think
recall.
They could just shoot directly.
Yeah, but you could also body block them a little better. Okay. Things were a little easier, as I recall.
Okay.
It didn't. I don't think it had a wall, but it's been a while. Regardless, I remember that game better.
Sure.
I think that I'm gonna remember this one because it's just it didn't really stick its landing. I don't think.
I'm gonna go. It looked good, and I think it accomplished what it was trying to do. I'm gonna probably go with the low B, but since there's only one B, you can't really see it. I thought it was okay, but I felt like we didn't really play it too much. There was other better games to play. So.
Yeah, it also wasn't doing enough that each level
didn't warrant us playlaying more.
No, not really.
Yeah.
So let's see, Infiltrate, where you're a spy or something.
Yep.
I thought that one. Well, what did I think of that one? I didn't really like how...
Very colorful.
It's colorful. You're moving a little fast, but it's also very sticky on the elevators. Mm-hmm. You also can't shoot off the elevators. They go really fast, so it's easy to miss your stop and get kind of stuck for a minute.
Right.
Also, the bad guys can't hurt you while you're on the elevators either. So if you just
can they?
no, because you can't shoot, they can't shoot.
Oh, weird.
Seemingly.
Interesting. I didn't really notice that. I did notice when I was trying to get off the elevators, I was dying. I guess I was just hitting them. But
I don't think that I would play that one again because of sort of the stickiness of it and this. It was almost too fast for its own good, also. Mm-hmm. But it did also play pretty well. The colors were decent, and even though you were a spy fighting what appeared to be
monsters of some sort,
some sort of Cubert monsters, I don't know. It didn't grab me super hard, but I will say it was pretty all right for what it was.
Right. I'm gonna go with probably a lower B. I thought it was decent. It was the action on it was good. It was like pretty obvious after doing it for a little bit. It's like, oh, we just need to get to the top of the screen. Okay, cool. I don't know if later levels you have to do more, but the elevator style, was decent. It was one of those that the character was kind of interesting and top hat and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Obviously they could have had more detail, but yeah, that was okay.
Lockjaw and Shark Attack were pretty damn similar, so I might rank them at
the same game, just
slightly different.
Yeah, I think the Shark Attack was maybe a later.
I'm gonna give Lockjaw a D because I just didn't really like how it played. But I will give Shark Attack a low C.
All right, so you're actually going to rate it differently.
There was slight difference.
It was faster.
It was faster, and that made a huge difference because even though you got stuck, you could get unstuck a lot faster.
Right.
Just that little bit of movement increase made it feel like you could actually get things done a little better, and it flashed slightly less on the dots.
Okay.
But I won't lie, it wasn't my favorite experience overall in general, but I'm going to rank them slightly differently, but pretty close.
Right. These are solid C's for me. Yes, they could have made the graphics better on the character and stuff. But
you did sort of look like a backwards fish. Sometimes.
Yeah. It was okay, but it's like of all the ones we've seen so far, it's probably the weakest. So
I would say so.
Yeah.
Lost Luggage, though, is where I'm going to start. A lot of these back half ones are the ones I was more interested in, mostly. But Lost Luggage, I actually did enjoy a pretty decent amount. I almost wanted to give it an A, but it didn't quite do enough to warrant that, I don't think. I also don't think
what could you think they could have done better?
Honestly, smallest, simplest thing, make it so you're just one guy. Because it felt...
The two guys was weird.
It was kind of weird and unnecessary.
I think maybe it was like too hard, so they were like, let's put two guys so that it makes us lighter or something, which is... Just go the other way and make it less fast on the luggage.
Yeah, there's ways to adjust for that, and I think that really would have made a difference.
It was a lot.
Yeah, or just making, I understand you could either have done it this way via the paddle to make it a little faster, make the guy a little faster. No. Either use the paddle or just make him go faster when he goes back and forth.
Now, my thought is, does it need the joystick, or would this been a better paddle game?
That's a good question, because it's very Kaboom-ish in that you're trying to catch a lot of things. But at the same time, I do think that standing for a moment in a spot without having to hold in that spot.
Well, that's part of the problem is the controllers, because the paddles would have been stationed. So,
and I suppose that's fair, but. I think the paddle could have definitely benefited this, or even, again, on a smaller level, if you don't want to change too much fundamentally, just make the guy faster without, increasing the speed of the luggage.
Right. I agree with you. I think it's a solid B game for me. I'm going to put it higher than Guardian. And I really liked the details of like when you messed up and all the luggage, whatever, all the clothes.
No, there were some good little.
That was neat. That was probably, in my opinion, that was like one of the
flashing light even on the top of the carousel was.
Oh yeah, it showed the carousel. Yeah, the clothes
breaking out.
Yeah, that was neat. I was just like, that was a level of polish that you don't see in a lot of these games.
Always, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
you need to pack better.
Yeah.
As a person.
I guess.
And that's the other thing is 2 people grabbing a singular set of luggage.
That would never work. It's kind of like, I mean, no. Now, it would be neat, and I don't know if they had this, but 2-player, like, trying to do it. That could have been neat.
That could have been a nice way to kind of fix some of those problems as well.
And it might have been 2-player and we didn't try it.
But nonetheless, fun time. Even if it was 2-player, you probably had 4 guys at that.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right.
But Racquetball, I'm going to give kind of a B. I'm going to give it a B. I didn't love the game, but that's also because I don't know F all about Racquetball. I don't know how to play that game very well. My criticism of it is truly just the one I stated, that it's a little hard to tell where the ball is because of the 3-dimensional space that they built,
right?
Which is a game mechanic that they chose to implement the way they did, and thusly is a fault of the game, I think. But I think they really did capture the feel of Racquetball. It's very hectic, it's crazy, you don't necessarily know what's going on. If I knew a little bit more about Racquetball, it might have been better. It was pretty simple controls overall. It didn't seem like it needed the button even. You just moved around.
Right.
But all in all, it was solid enough, and I'm not going to like dunk it too far down because I don't know how to do Racquetball.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I played once. I still couldn't tell you how to play, so yeah. I agree with you. I'm a solid B game for me. I really liked the reflections or whatever they were trying to show, basically of it going up to the wall, showing basically the I guess a reflection of where the ball was to really give you a good idea of where it is. Obviously, it'd be hard to do behind you because that's part of the deal. You're in a 3-dimensional space. But I truly, for what they were trying to implement there, I think they did a great job. I'm not going to hold me not being able to play Racquetball against it. But no, I actually did pretty good.
I think they did all right. Skeet Shoot, I'm going to give it D. That game sucked. It was the worst way to implement skeet shooting.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
A paddle game where you don't appear until the target does, and you've got to make that snap decision.
Sure, that shouldn't matter, right? You shouldn't need to see your character, but it matters. I don't know why.
It very much. For one thing, you're in different positions, also.
Sure,
and it's just like it makes a huge difference where if I'm standing in the middle and I see the thing, I already have an idea of where my character is and where I'm aiming.
Sure.
But even though it's always going to start from the same position once he appears, it's just too much to think of all at once.
I think you lose connection with the character when you disappear.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, there I am.
It's also just an unnecessary thing to do.
Yeah. Why? That was really weird.
You can have him move in between rounds without him just disappearing.
It could have been implemented way better. I think we have probably a good example of that later on.
Yeah, it's true. I think so.
I straight up, that was bad. Worse than Racquetball in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was just, these are later games. I feel like this would have been a bad Atari release, to be honest.
It just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
And it also was just very short and dull. There wasn't like...
Mm-hmm.
Also, even though it went at different angles, the target always came out of the middle.
Right.
Even if you were at different positions, and it was like, that seems...
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Lazy. Somewhat. But then the next one I think is a lot better. Space Cavern, which we have kind of played when we played Space Canyon.
Right.
But it was implemented way better.
Yeah.
The graphics were better, and it felt better.
Right.
So I'm going to give this one high B, I think.
Okay. I actually, I would have to go with the high B as well. graphically was phenomenal.
Very interesting.
Yeah, the
death animation.
Yeah, the death animation was crazy. I think the biggest thing that this had a problem with was really the game, the gameplay. I mean, it's again a shooting things in space game. And at this point, it's kind of like I've
seen it. I don't need more of that.
Yes, it has the sideways ones. That was a little different, but the graphics definitely
also instead
helped.
of letting you just aim and shoot, it was like up and down to shoot left and right, which
that is bizarre.
Takes some getting used to.
Yes, that was bizarre.
But it's definitely still better than this next one. Spacechase. Not a fan.
What was Spacechase?
Spacechase was the one where it's just the same 4 guys forever, or the same 5 guys.
Planet.
Yeah, and the planet's moving. The graphics were all right. It seemed like it had a lot of promise, and they just didn't do anything with it. And it was kind of dull because a lot of the times it was easiest to move as little as possible.
Right.
And you couldn't even move that far forward anyway. And then when there's one guy left, you're just never going to hit him.
Impossible to hit him.
Yeah. So I'm going to give that a middle C, I think.
See, this game is hard because I feel like this was almost made by 2 different people. Like one person did the background and stuff, and then the other person did like the shooting game. And kind of like when you do a college project, how you got one person that like outshines everybody else. That's kind of the way this was. The background and all of that stuff was phenomenal. We haven't seen that kind of cool scrolling kind of stuff in most of these games. And the stars in the sky and all that stuff.
Looked cool.
It looked really cool. But the shooting of the monsters and the animation was really blocky. It was not smooth.
And none of the enemies were particularly interesting to look at either.
And only the same enemies, and it didn't like you shoot it and you go to the next one and it'd be different enemies or
no, it was always just you're the same, shooting the same 4 guys again.
Yeah, it's just sad because it's really uneven.
Yeah. It's a genuine shame.
I just see, really, the gameplay is king. I mean, the graphics could look awesome, but if the gameplay is horrible, man, it's got to be graphics alone can't save it.
No,
I'm gonna have to give it a high C. It just
didn't nail it.
No,
did not nail it, and that's sad. But next one is Wabbit. Wabbit. That's right. This one, graphics were incredible.
Yes.
Like the girl looks like a human being with layers of clothing.
So
and
much detail.
Just really cool.
Like 4 different colors on the character.
Yeah, and honestly, pretty straightforward game, but it paid off. I think it nailed the formula for shooting up at things. Had an interesting theming a little bit, in like trying to keep rabbits out of your garden. It also was kind of cool that you didn't just instantly lose if they got all of your... It just moved on to another screen and you could, knock out their score. It was almost like you were competing in score with the rabbits.
Right.
And you got points for shooting them and they got points for taking carrots and you could knock down their score by various means.
So it's like a tug of war.
Yeah. I thought it was just a very solid experience. It was just good.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I'm going to probably put it... see, it's got to be A or S. I'm going to definitely give it a high A. I'm trying to think of what could have made this an S for me. I think would be a little more maybe fanfare or something.
A little more feedback
happening differently, like either like another screen that not a whole other screen, but like something that just. Something to make it pop a little bit more.
To show the progress popping.
Yeah, maybe, or something. But But other than that, I mean, I thought it was a very solid title. I could see it being very interesting to kids, to little kids, without being a kids game. I see it being something that's like, oh, you know, I'm totally just wanting to play that. I could totally see that but basically it's like shooting up at things, you know, game.
Sure, it just
a way better theming than most of the other games.
It nailed it in a lot of those ways.
Yep.
It locked in the formula and just did its own version of it really well.
Yep.
And also, you know, you're not trying to avoid the rabbits hitting you.
Sure.
So it is that focus on the stuff that the rabbits are doing, which is kind of nice because it is a little bit lame when you're like, all right, shoot, blah, 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 blah. And having two ways to lose kind of sucks.
The whole Space Invaders, the boom, hitting the ground. You're like, oh, game over at that point.
You're just done. Instead of just like, oh.
You know, lose a life, it's done. Yeah.
Yep. So that, I think they did well with that. So Wabbit, pretty cool. Apollo overall, I think was pretty good. I know I ranked a few in the C here, but I also think that's mostly because some of these felt underbaked, where they had really interesting or cool premises that I just didn't connect with on a fun level.
Sure.
But they made these games, most of the, other than Shark Attack and Lockjaw and Skeet Shoot, I'd say all of these games are really well made.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a lot of issues like with flickering or really bad stuff. I mean, like Shark Attack, see, compared to like talking about Shark Attack, I think Shark Attack could have been a much better game if they would have fixed some of the like the graphical glitches and some of the things could have been interesting. There was something going on with like on like if you go to a corner or something. We still didn't figure out what that was.
No, not really.
And I didn't see it in the manual. So I think there's different modes. I mean, I know there's more depth to the game,
but you know, it didn't have that fun layer.
It could have been better to where truly I didn't see anything in here that was just garbage. I mean, Skeet Shoot would be the closest thing to that. And that felt like just...
It didn't have good game feel.
No, it was not at all.
But everything else,
overall though, I think that Apollo is, I would say, not bad.
Yeah, pretty solid, I will say.
Compared to the others. So,
and now we're into the Epyx section, which I gotta say, Epyx definitely only having 3 games really nailed it, because I'm gonna give California Games an S, because the graphics were incredible on all sections of the game, and each section of the game was a more fun game than most of the Atari 2600 games I've played.
Exactly.
And all those other games didn't have more to go. I know that it came out literally 1988.
Yeah, it was late.
It was really late, but it gave them the time to...
I felt like it was basically they accumulated all the tips and tricks that people came before. But that's okay. I mean, we have to judge it. You know, it's like, all right, yes, it came later. I mean, I'm not going to lower it because it came later. That seems dumb.
No, it nailed it because it was a later title, and that's okay.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I played all these games on like computers and stuff, and while the graphics were better in those, the gameplay really wasn't. It was really very, very similar to what it was on the 2600. Yes, the 2600 had a little bit easier time of like, you know, you can go through and practice, and you can, you know, they had a little bit more menuing system to be able to like practice one event versus competing on one event and all that versus, you know, all these.
Sure, yeah.
But that's kind of here nor there. The deal is that the gameplay of each of the events solid. I mean, California Games, I think one thing I like about it most is the fact that the games are all varied. Unlike a lot of the other Olympics games, you know, it's like how many different racing events are there? It's like there's a ton of them, and it's like basic same idea. You're just doing this with a relay or a hurdle or whatever, you know, all these different variations on a theme. Whereas California Games was like vastly different on the different ones. Hacky sack and BMX and half pipe and all these different things. And I believe in the other, you know, that's the other thing with the computer versions, they had more. Okay, they had more events, and so they might have even actually made California games too. I vaguely remember seeing that.
Oh, okay.
So they had other stuff. So they had more. More
going on.
Yeah, a lot more events. But yeah, no. As far as like what they could fit on a 2600 cartridge, they nailed it.
They fit as much as they possibly could have.
Pretty much, yeah. They had music and stuff. I mean,
it was great.
Yeah.
There was fanfare. I enjoyed that game.
Mm-hmm.
Summer games, I will say, I still think it was made really well. Also, it has just a better Skeet game than the whole Skeet Shoot.
That wasn't in that one. That was in winter.
Was that
biathlon? Remember? Oh no!
I'm talking about the
you're right. Skeet.
Yeah,
Skeet, not biathlon.
Not the biathlon. Biathlon was also better.
Yeah.
It was
but no, the Skeet game. Imagine if they'd have just taken the Skeet shooting game.
Yeah.
Now, as somebody said in the chat, it did have the advantage of coming out like 8 years later or whatever.
Of course, but nonetheless, I don't think that Skeet Shoot should have had a reticle instead of just a guy that you aim his gun by visual alone.
Yes.
It's hard to tell. Also, that was one of the reasons I ranked it low. It's not just that the character just appeared. You have to judge the angle of the gun when the pixels
one shot.
Yeah, and all the pixels do are wiggle slightly more. Yeah. It's not easy to tell where that gun is actually aimed. You're like, okay, this is the angle. Oh, that's not the angle.
Right.
But I gave it a high B though. I was thinking about low A. To be honest, the thing that held it back is just I think the swimming events kind of bring it down.
Okay.
And again,
But the racing events are kind of the same way, though, right?
To a large extent, it's just the swimming felt like a slog because it was difficult. It didn't really seem like you were speeding. There wasn't a lot of feedback on whether or not you were doing it right. Yeah. Like the rowing, you could tell when you were doing the right rhythm. Mm-hmm. It was really hard to tell.
I did notice that having that, even the bar that had the speed bar or whatever.
Just would have been perfect.
Yeah.
And I will say that the graphics wise, really good, but it also has the problem of all of the other Olympic games being Summer Olympic games. It's it's a lot of racing. It's a lot of racing.
Yep.
You're hurdling, and then you're doing the 100-meter dash, and then you're doing the swimming race, and it's just it ended up bringing it down a bit. Incredible graphics though, and still a really fun game. It's just that one just kind of had issues because of that. Also, I have no idea how to do that gymnastics game.
The pommel horse. See,
you get up and you spin, I guess, but I don't really know how you get down.
I personally think if they'd have done diving, that would have been much cooler. But
I think so.
Yeah,
I think diving could have been really cool.
I'm gonna go with a high A for me. Go ahead.
No, you first. That was just.
Go ahead.
I'll explain it more with winter.
Being a fan of Summer Olympics or summer games on the computers, it was very interesting for me to see how well they were able to do this, just like California games. I agree that the racing events are a bit of a slog, but that's just racing. I mean, it is what it is. Yes, it could have been better. That's why it's not an S for me. But yeah, overall, the whole package, the skeet shooting was amazing. It was great. I
actually do quite enjoy the skeet shooting.
The things that are not racing based are good. The pommel horse one, or some of the other ones that
they're interesting, even if you don't exactly know how to function.
Right. Yeah. And the deal is, the pommel horse is it looks like you could move down and get better at it or whatever. And it is a lot more interesting to me than, just hit the joystick back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Although they did have that a little bit.
Yeah. I'm just saying,
but the games that weren't that, were really interesting.
Yeah.
But here, I'll finish my thoughts by ranking winter games as a high A myself, because I thought that just had a lot more variety to those events because they weren't all...
it wasn't just racing kind of stuff.
No, and
I guess they had a speed skating.
Sure, the speed skating which was a lot like the rowing, which I enjoyed.
Right.
But there was stuff like like the bobsled and the luge, where you're just going real fast and you're very invested in keeping yourself going. And
I was talking, I'm like, oh, I gotta shut up. I gotta play.
Yeah, it was easy to get invested in the winter games, because the winter games are also very unique. And like the slalom. Yeah. One of the better slalom games we've played, better than a lot of the ones that came out on this system as just slalom.
Right.
I really enjoyed biathlon. Once we figured out how to do it, it was actually pretty interesting.
Well, I think, to be honest, for that one, I'd really like to see what exactly the controls are. What you're trying to do.
Sure, trying
the heart rate thing.
Reading the manual would have helped in that instance. But just, it was an interesting thing to go back and forth and then shoot the stuff, and having to cock the shotgun was
I'm like, I was trying to figure out.
You got me messed up. Shotgun again.
That's why.
Yeah, because you were thinking pumping,
racking it. Yeah.
Whereas it's like the bolt of the rifle. I'm pretty sure that's what you're doing.
Yep.
But that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was an interesting way to do that. And just all of the events felt unique because of that, even the ones that were similar.
Yeah.
So winter games just had it for me on that kind of uniqueness. Also, they had the skiing events where you're like launching yourself were pretty cool.
Yeah.
They were a little difficult to do, but I feel like,
if we had more time, I think that we were kind of pressed for time a little bit because we were over.
But the nice thing is also that they are simple enough that, when you're playing against another person, it's like, all right, I might have gotten a 1 and you might have gotten a 0.5, but we're only competing against each other, really.
Here's the thing with those games. You can play, I think you can, even on the 2600, you can play up to 4 people.
Sure. And so
you're not playing at the same time. So that could be amazing because I could see that even today doing like a couch co-op kind of deal of going
would
playing
be
those.
Pretty fun.
Yeah,
and so I just think
maybe during Olympics next year.
Yeah, I just think I think the Winter Games really nailed what they set out to do. They knew what it was they were trying to do, and they nailed it more so than Summer, I think.
Sure, I would agree with you. I'm going to bump it up to S tier. Now, my question is, does it belong above or below California Games? And that's so hard. I
think California sticks in the S and Winter sticks in the A. Truly, and this one is just a visual thing, California Games looked incredible. They had a guy for the hacky sack that just looked
like a dude. Yeah. And all the thing we could see his knee. You could see actually his knee. Even
and the BMX almost looked Excite Bike levels of.
Yeah, it was just straight down. It was hard.
Yeah. And you were going pretty fast.
Yeah.
And it had good momentum.
Yeah.
I think California Games still clinches it for me.
Yeah.
Of the two of them, but that's a tough call.
Yeah,
to an extent.
I'm gonna have to leave it here. I thought they both were phenomenal. I mean, obviously, all the Epyx games. I have always been a fan of Epyx. Mainly, the first game that I ever got on the Atari 8-bit was an Epyx game, Jumpman Jr.
We've talked about that.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved it. And it was saying so. I like in my brain, Epyx was this game company that I just absolutely loved, and they actually put out a lot of games. Now they went crazy on the Olympic Games, and it's like that was kind of what they were known for. They have a couple of different franchises, but they really kind of went, hey, well, let's just keep making them. So they made it's like I think there's sequels for all of these games on the computer at least, but so they just have more events, more of the same, Yeah, no, a great group. I mean, we have like a straight. I mean, yours is slightly off, but
it's sure.
Yeah, I think they're almost inverted, almost just slightly off center. It's about it, just inverted.
Yeah, no, they're really close. Yeah. Everything Epyx, I gotta say, just has their 3 games on the 2600 are better than some of these companies' entire 12, 20, whatever games. They came and they used the knowledge of being very late to the 2600 to make the 3 of, I would say, the best games for the 2600, or at least the best made.
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said about that.
If you don't like Olympics, you're not going to like it really.
Sure. But there's something to be said about the quality of the build of these games. And I think they really built them well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have a strong structure.
Yep. I can't disagree.
But these two companies, They went well together, and I had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, this was
I just enjoyed playing these games. Mostly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think
that's bottom two.
The bottom two. Well, I think that's all we have for today.
Okay. Yeah.
But
everybody can leave their own list.
Yeah.
You know what? We should
actually, definitely do that. Go ahead.
And also feel free. We might even leave the link potentially. We could leave this tier list.
I do every time.
Yeah, well,
you can go rank it yourself.
Well, I didn't know that because I don't know that I've ever mentioned that before. Yeah. But go click on it.
Yeah,
and then, you
can rank it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Rank it and then even just
send us a link because I think you can link to
share share it with us. Share it with the comments.
Yeah.
Type it out too. But that way you can kind of have the experience. There is something fun about actually pulling these instead of just typing it out.
And there is. And that's why I think people really like these tier lists because of that.
Yeah, and I enjoy them as well. But thanks for joining us, guys, both here and in the live stream.
Yep. All right. Well,
and
that being said,
join us again next time.
See you in the next adventure.
See you next week.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I post new videos all the time and I wouldn't want you to miss any. If you'd like to see more of this series, be sure to click up here. And if you'd like to see something else, be sure to click up here.